Welcome to Unit 4, Lesson 5. As usual, you're looking for the tasks to complete for U4L5. You can find it under assignments or on the weekly calendar on the homepage. Today's date is December 14th. We'll start off with our usual chat and share. Throw the question in the chat right now. You can also see it on the task complete list. Question is, how would you spend $1 million? If you won the lottery, $1 million tax-free, how would you spend it? And now I'm going to take it as, let's say that it's given that most of you would probably invest it or save it or use it to pay off debts or something like that. That's great. I get that. What's something you would splurge on? I want to hear, like, what's the thing you would get that you would normally not consider buying, but now that you've got this surplus money, what would you go for? So that's what I'd like you to think about and share. And don't forget to say hi and check in with the person you're in the room with as well. We'll come back together in 2 minutes. Rooms are open. Sharon, everybody. Next on the docket is COVID in the news and homework check. I'm going to share my screen here for 2 seconds. Put some links to some interesting stuff that I'll just kind of peruse through. As always, I like to update us on the current new and confirmed COVID-19 cases. And so kind of interesting to see that we had a little bit of a slow in mid-December, but now it seems to be spiking again. Number of new cases still at a record high. BBC had 2 interesting articles. The first is that, as many of you may have heard, the first round of COVID vaccines from Pfizer were rolled out today in the US. They actually started administering them to nurses in New York. There's some photos from that are kind of interesting to see. So, there's reason for hope. But I don't want to scare anyone either. This is also in the news. There is a new variant of COVID-19 that has now been identified in England and is spreading around. And so I don't know if the vaccine is effective against this or not. I think what they're trying to figure out is if this is different. That's kind of the first question that health workers always have to ask themselves when they see a new variant is it as infectious? Sometimes it isn't as infectious. Believe it or not, these viruses sometimes mutate and become less harmful instead of more harmful. But we'll see. That's something to keep an eye on. And I would really like Reuters pictures. This is a cool slideshow. It's art of the pandemic. It's mostly just graffiti that's inspired by especially healthcare workers and things like that. But it's kind of a cool thing to flip through and see. And there are photos from all over the world. I think it's mostly Britain and New York, but they go all over the place. But anyway, kind of fun stuff to look through. There's 12 photos in total, but feel free to skip through that yourself when you want. Okay, homework was looking good. It was just making sure you completed the classwork that we did in our previous class, which was the bubonic plague simulation round 2 and the America Pox Ed puzzle. So make sure you have those done. And then we had the Gladwin reading on smallpox. Zach pointed out that I had made a mistake on one of these questions. The correct answer was wrong. I believe it was this one. So I think it's the third question, which was, while development of wide distribution of a vaccine definitely played a big role in eradicating smallpox, what other factors made it feasible to eradicate it? And it was both of those things, not just that there was no animal reservoir. It was also that it was impossible to be asymptomatic because of the pock marks that were on your face. And so, yeah, both of those are true. Anyway, you should have gotten credit regardless of which answer you selected. I made sure that it gives credit to all. So let me know if you still seem to be missing a point or something. But otherwise, everything's looking good. Any questions or comments on the homework or COVID in the news stuff? Alrighty. Our focus today is going to be a follow-up on the previous lesson where we were talking about the America Pox and that Ed puzzle and sort of addressing why there were plagues that infected the natives of the Americas, North and South America, but there was no plague that the explorers brought back to Europe. And it turns out that there actually might be a disease that they brought back, which is syphilis. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of syphilis before. Syphilis is an STI that ravaged Europe for many years. It's a bacterial infection, but it spreads sexually. And again, they don't know for sure, but there is some pretty good evidence indicating that it's actually a New World disease, that it came from North and South America. It was actually brought back by Columbus and people on his voyage. So again, there's just another short Ed puzzle for you to work through based on that. I found this one a little more entertaining. and then we'll move on to talk about the Spanish flu today. That's going to be our next kind of disease and history topic. So right now I'm going to throw, the Ed puzzle is about 8.5 minutes long with 5 questions. I'm going to put 15 minutes on the clock. But we'll come back together once it looks like most of you have it done. As usual, there's an alternative Google form too if that puzzle doesn't work for you. So 15 minutes to work on the Syphilis, the Great Imitator Ed puzzle. Go for it. Let me know if you need help. That they started to use was mercury. And as he says in the video, never touch mercury. It's a liquid metal. It's extremely toxic. They were convinced that it was a medicine that helped in all these different things, and it was kind of weird that it persisted for so long. There are medications now. There's also a part 2 to that video that if you want, you can check it out on your own time. It's kind of fascinating that history actually gets worse. Doctors, a few years after where he lets off, discover that people who have syphilis who then contracted malaria somehow recovered. And so they started to intentionally infect people with malaria, which helped in a few cases, but ended up killing a lot more people. And so it also led to this idea of basically seeing human experimentation as unethical, because these doctors were doing this without really letting anybody know what they were doing, what they were trying to do. So anyway, malaria is going to be the last topic we're going to move on to, so I'll save that for later. Questions or comments on this? Pretty horrifying. All right. Anyway, I just thought that was kind of interesting coming from the Americas. So another historical disease that's worth mentioning is Spanish flu. I'm not going to spend much time. We've touched on the flu already. I have a link to some quick review slides if you want to check those out. But just remember that flu is a virus. It infects the respiratory system. We go through it every year, right? There's a flu season that's been happening for eons. And the reason that we can't really get rid of it, right, we haven't been able to eradicate it, is because it mutates so well. Remember, there's 2 proteins that it uses to attack you, and basically the flu can jump from humans to animals, basically rearrange itself, mutate, and then jump from animals back into humans. So that's why we get swine flu, bird flu, all these other things, why it's been so hard to handle. But there was a particularly bad strain that came out right after World War I in 1918. And so what I want to do is a little jigsaw where I'm going to kind of throw it on you guys to read and figure out a few things about this. So on the tasks to complete list, we are on step number 6. Click on that assignment right there, Spanish flu jigsaw, and it will take you to this assignment here. You've just got to open 3 things. So the first thing is a Google Sheet with your partners. I randomly assigned people together. Let's see, Bella's not here today. So William, I think you'll be okay on your own. They're pretty short paragraphs. So let me know if you need help there. What you're doing is reading this. And so what I've done is, this is the key reading. It's an article from History, the History Channel website. It's why the second wave of the 1918 Spanish flu was so deadly. There's basically different paragraphs. Everyone see that each paragraph has a title. So how Spanish flu got its name. Virus killed the young, old, and in between. Lack of quarantines followed flu to spread to and grow. And so you and your partner are just reading one of those paragraphs. So find the paragraph with the title that's associated with your name. So like Max and Joy, you're doing how the Spanish flu got its name. Anthony and Margot, you're doing aspirin poisoning and the flu, which will be kind of towards the end. And so just read that short paragraph, and you're just coming up with like a short summary slide. Like just use bullet points, kind of like this, to summarize like the key points from that paragraph, right? What was interesting to you? What's something you want to share? And please include one relevant image. All you have to do is Google image search Spanish flu or whatever else is relevant. And I just think images are going to keep things exciting there. So each of you have an assigned slide. So, Max and Joy will be working on this one. Iva and Brandon, you're working on this one. And so we'll just pull together a presentation really quickly and then just kind of quickly present it, share it with each other. Hopefully we'll have time for this. So I'll start off with just showing the summary slide again. Spanish flu broke out right after World War I, 1918. 500 million people were infected. It killed about 30 to 50 million people, which means that it actually had a higher casualty count than the First World War. First wave was just normal flu, but the second wave was extremely deadly. It mutated in Europe, they think. The first case was actually in an army base in Kentucky, so theoretically it should be probably called Kentucky flu, but you'll see why it gets called Spanish flu. First wave spread to Europe with US soldiers who were going to fight in World War I, and then it mutated in Europe, and those same soldiers then brought the mutated form back to the US, where it then spread like crazy. So I'm going to throw probably about 15 minutes on the clock, actually maybe less. Let's try 10 minutes and to build your slides, and then we'll come together to do a quick share. Let me know if you need help or if you're not sure what to do.